After a reign of many, many, many years, there's been a youth injection at the tight end position over the last 2 years. That includes two rookies being near the top of the tight end 1 and tight end 2 in points per game. So this position, Hayden, I would say is a bit more in flux than it has been in previous years. Today, we are going to rank at least, 30 tight ends when it comes to your fantasy football leagues for this season.
We don't have to pretend that there's elite tight ends. Like, there actually are elite tight ends this year, unlike some of the most recent years. The top 3, I think, are like legit elite tight end profiles, all awesome players, all had awesome seasons last year. So there's not that much projecting that we have to do with the top guys, which makes me a lot more interested in drafting them in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds versus the previous years where I was like, I don't know about like Sam LaPorta being a 3rd round pick.
As we always talk about with Best Ball, how we have won previously, how we've constructed our drafts is a lot of Dr. Frankenstein the position at the end. That will come into play here with some of the later names, but also at the top. I know a couple months ago, I was drafting a whole bunch of round 4, round 5, George Kittle, and then that price skyrocketed. I do want to point out, and just zooming out here, 74% of NFL touchdowns over the last handful of years have been scored in the red zone. Last year, Hayden, that number was at 77%. I bring that up because more than any other position, tight ends are touchdown reliant. That basically takes you from, a 30, 40 yard week in terms of receiving yards to, if you add another 6 points on top of that, then you're immediately going to be one of the top 12 options out there. So again, for a position that is so reliant on touchdowns, I will be bringing up red zone opportunities on top of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure Weaves is throwing up the chart, but I have expected touchdowns versus actual touchdowns. And the amount of outliers on this chart, we'll get to Trey McBride, Kelce, Mark Andrews on the other side of it. It's wild. And like you said, it swings things massively. So regression.
Okay, you and I actually have a different tight end 1 this year. Mine is Brock Bowers. The People's is Brock Bowers. Before we get into another conversation of why you have another name out front, we still both love Brock Bowers. Why?
Yeah, I mean, the best rookie tight end season ever. He caught 112 receptions. Next closest by rookie was at 86. He dominated from the slot and out wide. He's not just like an inline guy. He's like a legit slot wide receiver. 33% of his targets were when he was outside, or 33% target rate when he's lined up outside. Like, that's elite wide receiver 1 numbers. He caught all 11 of his speed outs from the slot, 14 of his 16 out routes from the slot. He's a total weapon in the pass game there. So like, the only thing that you can possibly nitpick is just new eyeballs on the offense. They do have Michael Mayer there. And the 2nd round is so loaded with players. We mentioned Josh Jacob types, Ladd McConkey we like, T. Higgins we like. These are the kind of opportunity costs that you have to go with Brock Bowers this year. But, I mean, we're coming off literally the best rookie tight end season ever.
Yeah, he's a mid-2nd round pick around that 205, 206 mark. That is after that amazing rookie season, as you pointed out, just under 1,200 yards. What held him back was the 5 touchdowns, and it's because the Raiders' offense was not fun last year. I mean, I think on some level you can mention that Aiden O'Connell and just where he attacks on the field was advantageous for someone like Brock Bowers just in terms of pure volume. But at the same time, when you elevate both the play caller and the quarterback on top of it, you're going to get more points and you're going to get more red zone opportunities. And so I'm excited to see Brock Bowers be isolated in a lot of situations, be lined up in a whole bunch of different alignments, and not just have a vast majority of his targets be in that 0 to really 7 yard range. We're going to see, I think, even more intermediate outcomes for him this year.
Yeah, the gene of the seam balls, the big like corner routes in the red area and stuff, those are now part of the playbook for Brock Bowers, which we didn't see. And obviously that big wheel route in the preseason game, you're going to see that type of throw available for Brock Bowers. I do think that low-key, the Raiders had like a bunch of receptions this last year because they were always chasing. And the defense is still really bad. But I can see like the reception numbers not being quite as high this year as they were last year for Brock Bowers. Kind of everything ran out for them. Like, now they have Ashton Genty. I think it's gonna be a little bit more balanced in general. But like you said, the team's going to look a little bit better. So hopefully we can swap out 5-10 receptions for 3-4 more touchdowns. And then we're kind of back in that mix where we're either the tight end 1 or the tight end 2.
Yeah, the Vegas Raiders were tied for 26th last year in terms of just red zone scoring opportunities per game at 2.7. That range just overall, number 1 last year was Detroit and Washington at 4.3 red zone drives per game, and bottom in the NFL were Cleveland and Chicago at 2.1. and 2.3. Since it was a talking point in the preseason, I do want to bring up the 11 personnel stuff, how they ran the vast majority of their snaps out of that. That decreased the amount of snaps for Brock Bowers. I have been totally unmoved by all of that. To me, for multiple reasons. One, Pete Carroll has said that they want to have an edge of their identity once they get to the regular season, that in the preseason, it was all vanilla. He said that after every single game. Deshaun Reed of The Athletic even said, do not read into the offenses they're putting out in the field. It's not going to look like it is once week 1 rolls around. So again, I am unconcerned that the likes of Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton are going to keep Brock Bowers off the field, and he is going to see the same amount of snaps as he did last year.
Yeah, that's a consensus. Since we've had that, his ADP's actually gone even higher.
I could also, despite all that, even before we got to the preseason, hear someone out if they wanted to rank Trey McBride as a tight end 1 this season, like you do.
Yeah, after week 4, Trey McBride averaged 9.7 targets, almost 80 yards per game. He had the second most screen targets among tight ends, only behind Jonnu Smith in a different offense that does not even exist for him anymore. So he's probably going to lead the position in screen targets. He's really creative yards after the catch wise, which is why Marvin Harrison had 0 targets behind the line of scrimmage. Like, there's a purpose because of this. He's an absolute animal after the catch. He's also really good at the catch point. And that's why I think the big thing with Trey McBride is he's going to score a lot more touchdowns this year. He had 2 receiving touchdowns last year. My model, based off of his usage and where the targets go, a lot of them inside the red area, he was expected to score 9. 7 fewer touchdowns than expected. And Trey McBride is so dang good that there's going to be some years in the future where he's going to score a lot more than his expectation is. So if he has the same receiving numbers that in terms of receptions and receiving yards, which that's the sticky stuff, and he goes and meets expectations in the red area, he's going to run away with scoring at the position. And the Cardinals project for 50 more points than the Raiders do across the entire season too. So it's a better offense, more stable offense. And nothing's really changed for Trey McBride, who's entering the prime of his career. So I think he's like one of the best picks, regardless of position, regardless of round. Like, you can get Trey McBride in the 3rd round. I think this is like a potential cheat code for the entire season, especially in full PPR redraft.
And you have about a 9-pick discount in your home leagues when we combine ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo of where Brock Bowers is going versus Trey McBride in that 302 spot. Yeah, I mean, he has 15 end zone targets over the past 2 years, has only pulled in 3 of those for touchdowns. Only 6 receiving touchdowns through 3 NFL seasons. And again, stats versus film, every single Tuesday, we talk about here on this channel, every single NFL team. So if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button constantly last year because it took forever for Trey McBride to actually catch a touchdown last year. We literally went through every single one of those red zone targets and end zone targets that he got. And it wasn't a Trey McBride problem, you know?
No.
It's a Kyler Murray problem, but that is still continuing on top of this. I do want to bring up some things that people at home might be saying, in that Trey McBride also did not score touchdowns at Colorado State, had very low numbers on top of that. But again, we've seen other tight ends previously, like George Kittle, for example, who were kind of stuck in that 4 to 5 to 6 touchdown mark for portions of their NFL career, absolutely explode one year. And there's, again, nothing in the profile to me that speaks to Trey McBride not being able to score touchdowns at the NFL.
I mean, if he's mossing guys at the 50-yard line, I know he can moss guys in the red area, plus all those screen stuff. So, yeah, it's going to happen one day.
When he was on the field, he led the Arizona Cardinals in target share in terms of 31.7%. It's why one of these offenses, Drew Petzing from the Kevin Stefanski tree, has so many plays. First 3 targets go to the tight end. And it's why last year he should have been selected before Marvin Harrison Jr. and why this year he is being selected ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, we have one more name in this S tier, and that is George Kittle. Again, we've been drafting since May, hundreds and hundreds of drafts underneath our belt, calls losers if we want to. We also touched some grass this summer, but it was very easy to load up on both elite quarterbacks and George Kittle early on this summer in the 4th and 5th round. That is now becoming impossible to do because George Kittle, and even in home leagues, Hayden, has climbed up to the 310 spot.
Yeah, so I think this is like a good kind of breaking point of why we like these elite tight ends more in redraft, because you actually have to like submit your lineup. You can't just like let the best ball scoring where we pick your touchdown weeks and we ignore the other ones. These 3 guys get tons of volume, and with George Kittle, he's also awesome scoring touchdowns because the 49ers are going to be top 5 in points once again. So like last year, tight end 1 overall in fantasy points over replacement, was awesome there, even though he's tight end 5 usage. But now you're talking about like no Deebo Samuel.
Right.
There's a lot of just mystery going on in the pecking order over there. So yeah, I mean, like his tape was awesome. He's in great shape. They gave him an extension earlier. It's like there's no question marks with George Kittle. So like at the end of the third round, like versus some of those like very hit and miss wide receivers where I know we can draft the rookie wide receivers later that we targeted, like I would break ties in favor of George Kittle.
Here's a conversation that I don't think is being mentioned enough. What if he is the primary pass catcher for this offense this season? You know, he was already the tight end 1 last year in points per game. Like, but his volume, which has always been kind of a inhibiting factor for him to be among the Kelces and the Andrews and the Wallers even of the past, he's just had to be super efficient on those and be a freak after the catch, which he probably still is with both of those. But again, is peak Brandon Ayuk that we got over the last 2 years, is that better than probably this version of Ricky Pearsall? Yes. Yeah. Is peak Deebo Samuel when he was one of the highest scoring wide receivers that then the following year to take him in the round 2-3 area? Is that better than this version of Juwan Jennings? Probably yes. And so if both of those elements are gone, we have like, I think a clear path to George Kittle being, again, the primary pass catcher for a San Francisco 49ers team that has the easiest schedule in the league, that in a down year last year finished around 15th in points scored, and that lost their really red zone effectiveness from being first in the NFL to about league average. To me, the reason why he belongs in this tier, despite being the third of the 3, is that there's a, again, clear path and clear narrative for him to finish out the season as, again, the tight end 1.
Yeah, all fantastic points. I totally believe all that stuff. And the defense in San Francisco is worse now than it was in like those seasons too, where George Kittle was like always competing with targets. Like I think the 49ers might be like chasing some points in some games because the 49ers defense is more average than like at one point where it was elite. Yeah, George Kittle, he still looks like the same player. Like I was looking at the success rate. His success rate on targets, 73%. The league average is around 55, 60%. I mean, he's just dominating the rest of the tight end group out there. And that's just in success rate. That's not even the explosive plays that this freakazoid has. So like, I mean, elite quarterbacks, it's like Trey McBride, the 2 elite quarterbacks, and then you can put the George Kittle right after that and not even worry about the rest of the wide receiver 3s or the third round wide receivers that are currently sitting there in ADP.
Yeah, the third round wide receivers is what we don't love. Now, again, a strategy conversation here. The 2v2s is what you have to think of. Like, again, when you take someone like Brock Bowers, the 2 wide receivers right next to him are Drake London and AJ Brown. Even the running backs are Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown. So you're basically taking Brock Bowers over those names versus if you took a tight end in round 8 and some that we really like that we'll talk about a bit later on. A wide receiver in that range is Matthew Golden, who we absolutely adore, you know, or in round 3, like you said, the running backs, Amarian Hampton, James Cook, the wide receivers, you can poke holes in Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, those types of names. So like the 2v2s of the third round range are much nicer than the second round range.
Yeah. That's why like when I'm drafting, I have been kind of skipping over Brock Bowers and then waiting to get McBride or Kittle in the third round, just because I think that the drop off is pretty clear, opportunity cost wise.
The other big conversation is when do you take the 4th tight end? Because there's a clear tier break when we talk about drafts and where all these players are going. Sam LaPorta is that for us. Actually, a few of these guys are kind of averaged together. We'll get into that in a moment. But Sam LaPorta is the next tight end off the board, but that's all the way in the middle of round 5. So a full 2-round difference between. Why does that make sense?
Well, he was dealing with injuries last year, and his numbers were nowhere near the top 3 guys. So I think that's like the starting point. In his last 6 contests, after he kind of got his feet back underneath him, he did average 64 yards per game, which is a little bit better than I think people kind of remember. Like by the end of the season, probably because your team was eliminated if you did draft him, he was actually looking pretty good. He also has ran hot with touchdowns previously. That was two seasons ago. Like we've mentioned on all of our other shows, the Lions are projected to score 1 fewer touchdown per game this year than they did this past season. So we'll see. I think he's a fine selection at where he goes, like 6th, 7th, 8th round, kind of depending on your league format. I think that's totally fine. Yeah. But his big breakout season was also like right before Jameson Williams had his big breakout season. So there's definitely some more competition. Jahmyr Gibbs in the prime of his career now. So yeah, there's some question marks. I fear that we're never going to have that crazy season that he had as a rookie. But at this cost, I do think it makes sense. He's the fourth or the fifth tight end.
It's still too rich for me, and I love Sam LaPorta as a player because I can't see his name around, the George Pickens to even the Travis Hunters of the world, the Tony Pollards, the Rashee Rices, but that's where he's going to go in home leagues because people want to fill out, their starting lineups and not have to worry about this tight end position. Again, I love Sam LaPorta. He averaged just 5.2 targets per game after 7.1 his rookie season. Again, as Hayden pointed out, it's because he was super banged up because when he got healthier, I'm not going to call it healthy, but healthier, he did see at least 6 targets in 8 straight games to close the year. To me, the issue with this is, and this is kind of anecdotal, and I've also looked it up statistically, but when Jameson Williams had not kind of reached his peak, that's when Sam LaPorta finished as the tight end 1 in points per game. And then when I really do feel like Ben Johnson weaponized Jameson Williams in somewhat of the same areas where Sam LaPorta was getting all of that production the previous year in terms of drags and crossing routes and kind of manufacturing space for them and winning after the catch. Again, I think Sam LaPorta is a fantastic athlete for the position, exactly the type of profile I want to invest in. But now you go from Ben Johnson to, a different play caller. So, I just haven't been taking a lot of Sam LaPorta despite loving the player.
Yeah, on Underdog, he's 77th overall, which is by like Jacoby Myers, Juwan Jennings, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Khalil Shakir, versus like the names that you were just mentioning, which typically go in the 5th round. So you can't draft them in redraft. It's a pretty substantial drop from the top 3 guys, but I do think he's like fairly safe. Like he's a good player in a good offense. He's going to be a tight end 1 this year. That's for sure.
Okay. He is my tight end 4. Your tight end 4 is Travis Kelce, newly engaged. Travis Kelce. This is much later than we previously would have had to take him in many, many, many years as he was embedded in the first round. Why is he your tight end 4?
Last year, the 3rd most red zone targets of any position. So, and he didn't score very many of them. So you're getting like positive touchdown regression out of Travis Kelce, which like to me is like pretty sweet. Like he's being priced as if he's not going to score touchdowns. Well, that's all he's done his entire career. This is still Patrick Mahomes. Everything about the Chiefs offense feels better this year. And what I like about Travis Kelce now is Rashee Rice is going to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season. You can draft Travis Kelce right now, tack on a rookie tight end later, potentially flip Travis Kelce after the 4th or 5th week of the season and ride out this really high projection that you're going to get early on. And even last year in a down season for him, he's the tight end 7 on tight end 4 usage. And that was just because the touchdowns kind of went away. So seems like he's in good shape. He's got a celebrity wedding to play in for. He's going to be in awesome shape because of that. He has to be. I feel like this is going to look really good for the first month and a half with Rashee Rice not there. And I think by that point, you can either find somebody else or this offense looks so dang good where everybody eats.
It kind of sounds tinfoil hat-ish, but I don't think it is. That he needs to go all out for those first 6 weeks when this team is without Rashee Rice, and then kind of take a back seat and get ready for the playoffs from there, because they really do occupy the same exact area and dominate there in terms of winning short, intermediate, over the middle of the field, and then after the catch being super fluid and athletic. And I just don't think Travis Kelce can do that for 17 games at this point. He can do it for 6, for sure, in the opening 6. But then I do feel, even despite injury, that Rashee Rice is just the better football player at this point. And Rashee Rice is going to dominate that area once he comes back. People might disagree, but that's where I'm at. Again, last year, without Rashee Rice and with Xavier Worthy kind of occupying a bunch of those targets at the end of the year, 8.5 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. Travis Kelce's career low last year. So again, still a fantastic player. But Hayden, I kind of do wonder when we talk about ages and cliffs, and this is much, much, much later than it does impact many other players because he's a Hall of Famer. I kind of do wonder if we saw it a little bit last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the numbers were down, but I'll point to like Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates and like the players that have made it this far in their Hall of Fame career that are still playing. Like Tony G's like last couple seasons were phenomenal. And I do think that there's something to that. Like these guys, it's just like their awareness against zone coverage is awesome. He's apparently in better shape. I'm like, obviously, shape of your lives. I get it. But he did not seem like to be moving quite as fast this year. It looks like he's lost some weight. Travis or Andy Reid's at least mentioned that. So I think all that's going to play in. And even if he's just like the tight end 4 for the first 6 weeks of the season, and then he's the tight end 10 from that point forward, at this ADP, I mean, he's like goes in the 90s on Underdog. I mean, the wide receivers that he goes around might not catch nearly as many passes as Travis Kelce will straight up this year.
Yeah. Going in the 6th round in many home leagues out there right now. Just again, red zone opportunities. You mentioned how many touchdowns he was expected to score last year. The Kansas City Chiefs were tied for 3rd most red zone drives per game at 4.1. Okay. That is going to do it for this tier. We only have 2 names because moving forward, it's some interesting conversations. And Tyler Warren's ADP has skyrocketed up, and we are basically in line with it, making him our tight end 6 at this moment. Again, as we have talked about it, 3 tight ends for the Indianapolis Colts last year played around 450 snaps. Rather than taking a defensive tackle or a cornerback or an offensive lineman, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen said, no, we need one guy to be out on the field for 90+% of snaps because we want to run 11 personnel. And that's exactly what they're getting in Tyler Warren. In the preseason, we've seen manufactured touches. We've seen Mark Andrews like usage. We've seen crossing routes, over routes, all that type of stuff. And while I wasn't as in love with people calling Tyler Warren a locked and loaded top 5 or top 10 prospect in the NFL draft, he, in terms of his usage, has made me a total believer for his rookie season. And I've ranked him ahead of all other Indianapolis Colts pass catchers.
He reminds me of a young Mark Andrews, who is obviously a very productive player. Like you said, does not come off the field in the preseason. So if that sticks as it should, he's going to catch a lot of passes. The Daniel Jones offense has been one where you can't even throw the ball down the field. Everything's going to be underneath. Shane Steichen has done that in the RPO world with Gardner Minshew before. And even when Shane Steichen was mentioning the Daniel Jones stuff, he was like, back in 2022, and I went back in that season, and Daniel Jones was last in throwing the ball downfield. So it's going to be very tight end and slot friendly offense. I really like Josh Downs. I really like Tyler Warren. At the same time, we have to acknowledge in the red area, you have Jonathan Taylor. The Colts are not going to be in the red area very often. So I think like PPR scheme wise, I think Tyler Warren's going to get it done this year. Do I think there's an opportunity for him to be like Brock Bowers and stuff? I don't, because we know that Michael Pittman's good. We know that Josh Downs is really good at football, and we know that Daniel Jones is bad as a starting quarterback. So I think we're kind of capped on where this thing can go, but like rightfully so, he should be in this tier. I just think there's another drop off from the top 2 guys.
With that said, I do feel like his ceiling is the tight end 4 this year. Like I could see him surpassing Sam LaPorta and Travis Kelce just for being a gimme focal point of the Colts on any given week. Like, to me, he's going to have a floor no matter what. And that is a really difficult thing to say about the tight end position, which can be a graveyard week to week, unpredictable week to week. Again, if you use our draft guide, which now we have put a link out there that will post in the description down below, so you all can just download the PDF for totally free. Tyler Warren is being drafted as a tight end 9, around 87th on some platforms, up to 113 on Sleeper. So again, if you use our draft guide, you're getting Tyler Warren, because I'm kind of going from the top 3 names, avoiding a whole bunch of the other names we haven't talked about, and kind of also avoiding Sam LaPorta and Travis Kelce in drafts. And my eyes just immediately go to Tyler Warren.
Yeah, if he's available in the hundreds, you should gobble him up. I am a little bit nervous about this entire tier, just in general.
But again, you are the most confident of Tyler Warren, and he's going after many of the names in this tier that we're about to talk about.
Definitely. He's a relative target.
Okay.
Just draft George Kittle. We went over it. Draft Trey McBride.
Yeah, but depending on where you are, you might not be able to in your draft.
Sure.
So again, I want to give the people the alternative, and my alternative has been Tyler Warren for the last few weeks on top of that. All right, people, my wife and I just moved into a new home. You know the drill. You get inspections, you get estimates, things to fix, the plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, the roof, all that type of stuff. If you are going through a similar thing right now, I implore you to add life insurance onto that list. First of all, it's a lot easier to obtain, and it's far, far less expensive. And I'll point you in the direction of Ethos, where you can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some policies are as low as $2 a day that are billed monthly. The reason why it's easy is that it is not complicated, and it is 100% online. There is no medical exam required, and you can only answer a few questions, and that's all that you need. You get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. When I signed up for life insurance, someone came to my door at 7:30 in the morning, sat in the kitchen around the dining table with them for an hour and a half. That was not with Ethos. So again, protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. It is much, much simpler. Get your free quote at ethos.com/the show. That is ethos.com/the show. You never think about life insurance. Hopefully this forces you to do that now. Mark Andrews, I believe, is next for us. Yeah, I have him as tight end 6. You have him as tight end 9. So there's a bit of a gap here. Why do you think that gap exists?
Last year is a crazy season for him. He finished as like the tight end 9 on tight end 19 usage. He dominated in the red area. You have those crazy Lamar Jackson stats. He scored 6 more touchdowns than expected, according to my model. So like compare that to Trey McBride, where like they basically were expected to score the same amount of touchdowns, except, you know, Mark Andrews scored all of them and Trey McBride scored none of them. So I was kind of a little bit more optimistic when I thought Isaiah Likely was going to miss like a big portion of the season. It seems like he's a little bit ahead of schedule there. But the reality is he averaged 4 targets per game. So he has to score a bunch of touchdowns. This is the Ravens offense. I believe in that. But trying to copy paste the touchdown rate that he had previous season, I think is like way too rich for me.
Yeah, those Lamar Jackson numbers are absolutely ridiculous. Specifically for Mark Andrews, he had 15 red zone targets, 11 touchdowns. I'll repeat that. 15 red zone targets and 11 touchdowns. Now, as what we have said previously about Travis Kelce, I'm not putting Mark Andrews on that caliber of player, but he has been the overall tight end 1 in some years. And this is still an offense that we definitely want to believe in. And I'll continue to say that Todd Monken's offense, the red zone system, is built around Mark Andrews scoring red zone touchdowns. So while, again, might not be 11 touchdowns on 15 red zone targets, I still think that we could also improve off of an Isaiah Likely injury. Maybe some of the gimmies, the consistency of some receptions for a team that is in 12 plus 22 personnel, nearly 50% of snaps in 3 wide receiver sets, which is a lot of what these other tight ends have to deal with, only 26% of the time. I still feel like there's a pretty easy path here, or an obvious path, I should say, to another 9-10 touchdown season.
Yeah, definitely so. He has to have that because he doesn't get any of the manufactured touches anymore. I was looking behind the line of scrimmage targets last year. He averaged 0.2 per game. Most of the tight ends that we've already talked about, it's 1 or 2. So you're losing some of the manufactured touches and stuff. So he has to be that touchdown guy. So maybe a better in best ball guy. Like I also love Lamar Jackson right now. Yep. So I can't go like too far down. So like I'm expecting a bunch of touchdowns here, but like you have to. If he has like a normal season in that department, he's going to be a bad pick.
Okay, next is TJ Hockenson, who's actually being drafted out there as the tight end 5. That's obvious for us. We're a bit lower on him than the market. Why do you think the public is so high on TJ Hockenson, and where are you different relatively?
Well, everyone knows he's a good player. I don't think he's maybe quite as good as some people think. I think he's like more of a tier 2 player. So there might be a little bit of a disagreement there. But I think the real thing, and we talked about this plenty, is everyone's taken the Kevin O'Connell offense for what it's been previously. And like, I understand that. I'm just looking at what happened last year with Sam Darnold and that interior offensive line and their lack of scoring touchdowns in the red area on the ground. And the way that JJ McCarthy was used in college, and like everything points to me as like, this is gonna be a more balanced offense. So now you're getting a more balanced offense that I think it's gonna be hard to have. You know, you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, now even Adam Thielen, who I think is like legit competition for Hockenson over the middle, plus a second running back here. And then you look at the team totals for the Vikings, and they're like 20th in projected points this year. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, if they're anywhere near 20th in projected points and it's going to be a more balanced offense, like, how do you have 4 pass catchers that are going to matter?
Obviously, JJ McCarthy and Colston Loveland were fantastic together at the University of Michigan. And TJ Hockenson is, you know, another year removed from this injury that did sideline him for quite some time. TJ Hockenson is like a really solid player, you know?
Yes.
Justin Jefferson is an elite player. Once Jordan Addison comes back, that is a very important piece to this offense too. And look, he only averaged 3.5 yards after the catch last season, which ranked 62nd at the position. Some might say, well, again, it's because he was coming back from this injury. Well, in 2022 and 2023, that was at 3.2 and 3.5 yards. So he's just not much of like a creator for me, where I can see basically every single other name that we've talked about here, other than Mark Andrews, and we've already discussed that that's red zone efficiency to the max, the ultra max. I just don't put Hawk in those top 6 names.
No, and a good point on the yards after the catch. I have behind the line of scrimmage targets per game last year, 0 for TJ Hockenson. I have like 30 tight ends listed on this table here. He's the only tight end with 0.0.
Yeah. And if I really squint, 6 of these names, I could make a case for being the top 2 or top 3 scoring tight end this season. I can't squint and see TJ Hockenson as being a top 2 scoring tight end this season.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, he's going very, very, very early. Just to put that into perspective, he's the 65th overall player when we combine everything on ADP in terms of your home leagues. The name before him is Isaiah Pacheco. The name after him is Calvin Ridley. That's also ahead of the likes of, again, Travis Hunter, Rome Odunze. It's even ahead of Travis Kelce. So I will not be ending up with much TJ Hockenson this season. Okay, I will more likely be ending up with Tucker Kraft, who is the tight end 11 in ADP. And Hayden, we rank him above that.
Yeah, this is the guy, if I'm going to wait it all the way out and miss out on my targets early, and I'm going to be one of the last guys to draft a tight end, Tucker Kraft is my favorite of the bunch. Last year, he was already the tight end 11. In that Packers playoff game, he played 97% of the snaps. You mention it all the time, and you're right. He's one of the best blocking tight ends out there. He's also awesome in the manufactured touch department. He had the 3rd most screens among tight ends last year, only behind Trey McBride and then Jonnu Smith. The coach quotes this offseasons are like, hey, we like what we got out of those Tucker Kraft explosives and those manufactured touches. Let's do that more. Yep. I mean, he's on the field every single snap. They say they want to get him the ball more. The Packers are going to be awesome this year. They have depth on the offensive line. They traded for Micah Parsons. The defense is now good. This is going to be one of the best teams in football. And he's also good in the red area because he's massive. So, to me, is there a full-time, young, ascending player on a good offense available? I think it's Tucker Kraft. I'm going to wait all the way past the guys that we mentioned recently, and I'm just going to wait out for Tucker Kraft.
And this team was top 3 in terms of red zone scoring attempts per game last year at over 4. He's so good. I mean, he should be viewed as a top 10 tight end in the NFL at this moment. And it wouldn't shock me at all if by season's end, if he's viewed as a top 5 tight end out there. He is so fluid in terms of his athleticism. He sticks his nose in there in the run blocking department. The only issue, as you said, was 5 or fewer opportunities in 14 of 18 games last year, more than 7 targets just once. But so much coach speak this summer we got to get Tucker the ball more. We got to get Tucker the ball more. So again, the volume has been the barrier, but man, he is so nasty to the tune that only George Kittle averaged more yards per catch last year. Tucker Kraft was at 14.1.
Yep. Yeah. I think they're going to pass the ball a little bit more this year just because Jordan Love's not limping around like crazy, and there's not the Malik Willis games either. So I'm just expecting them to score more points in general. And I think more passing just in general is coming. And I think it's coming towards Tucker Kraft and Matthew Golden particularly.
Yeah. So he is our tight end 9, and he's being selected as tight end 11 in all your home leagues. And that's, after pick 100 on a lot of platforms. And again, that's right next to Tyler Warren, actually in ADP, but you're having to draft him just ahead of Travis Etienne and J.K. Dobbins and Khalil Shakir and these names, which is so much more palatable to take the dive to fill out your starting lineup in that department. Okay, moving on. Still 2 more names in this tier, and that is Evan Engram of the now Denver Broncos. Hayden, Joker?
I haven't seen anything Joker about him. I mean, I guess kind of Joker, but they gave
I think Sean Payton did give him that label eventually after Kay Adams asked him about it for about the 12th time.
Yeah, he's like, all right, you guys are taking the Joker bit a lot further than I am here. He's like, this is not Jimmy Graham or Reggie Bush or Alvin Kamara. This is Evan Engram. Yeah, I think he's not going to be a full-time player because they're going to use, they have their tight end 2 and tight end 3 are real blockers, and that's where Evan Ingram's weakest at. He's 30 years old. He's going to have a role. There's going to be some leak routes. You're going to be able to throw some quick outs to him. He does mesh well with Bo Nix. He's going to be a player that's a real player in this offense. Is he that full-time player? Is he the PPR scammer that we saw when Jacksonville had nobody else to throw the ball to? He's not. So I just think that I'm meeting this in the middle. He was a tight end 11 in usage last year. Is he going to be that here? I think so.
Split flow action was the name of his game in Jacksonville in terms of all the momentum of the entire formation going in this direction. He cuts across it against the grain, give him a catch near the line of scrimmage and kind of let him rumble. But he, like, in order to really pay off, he's going to have to be second on this team in targets. And he's going to have more than second on the team in targets last year, which was Javonte Williams at 70. Still, as much as I've loved Evan Engram during his NFL career and always thought whatever second team he landed on, he could finally blossom there, which he did. He has not scored more than 4 touchdowns in a season since his rookie season.
Yeah, it's a size thing. Yeah, it's a size thing. He's sometimes not going to be out there in goal line formations because of the blocking stuff. So yeah, that's more of a PPR scammer. You can do worse though. Like if he's at pick 100, you haven't drafted a tight end, you're in a full PPR league, you feel great about your wide receivers, you've already drafted the rookie wide receivers that we talked about, and then Evan Ingram's now you're starting tight end. Not the worst thing I've ever heard.
Colston Loveland was both of our tight end 1 in the NFL draft, ended up being that exact thing once the draft rolled around, despite the rankings being the opposite with Tyler Warren for most of the draft process. I'm not going to say regretfully, but I feel like we were part of the hype machine so much for him, Hayden, that now he's being selected right where we rank him.
Yeah, so with Colston Loveland, he's a phenomenal player. He's going to be one of the Bears' most important players on the entire team. Is that going to happen the first 8 weeks of the season? I'm not sure about that.
It could.
But it could. And if it does, I think I will be ranking him very aggressively. So this is one where like the baseline assumption is he's not going to be a full-time player for like until Halloween. And then once we get to Halloween, then is he going to be in the Kelce LaPorta tier perhaps? I think there's a chance he'd get all the way up there. But especially in like redraft, like you're only most likely drafting one tight end in these leagues. Like Tyler Warren in week 1, I'm going to have ranked ahead of Colston Loveland because the snaps are not going to be the same. So like in best ball, it's a little bit different, but in redraft leagues, if you just like had to grab somebody, these guys that ranked ahead of him like project better early on in the season. But I would still love Loveland as a backup, just like hold him on because he's extremely talented and this Bears offense could take a big leap.
And look, there's been a not debate during the preseason, but that the concerning element that Olamide Zaccheaus is blocking Luther Burden. Well, this team's going to run a whole bunch of 11 personnel. When they run 11 personnel, it might not be Colston Loveland on the field, all those situations. It's going to be a lot of Cole Kmet to open the season. And so on some level, Colston Loveland is also competing against Olamide Zaccheaus and Luther Burden for opportunities, at least early on. To me, once he touches the field, he can change the fabric of a passing game.
Oh, yeah.
He is so fluid. He routes up DBs. He's too fast for linebackers. And this is why Ben Johnson won him, who coached, the tight end 1 in points per game just a couple of years ago during his rookie season. So I can't wait for that moment. It's just going to be, again, one of these growing players who really might be a like post-buy rookie bump type guy.
Definitely so. But if we get the information after week 1 and he's out there for 80% of the routes, like
wheels up,
it's go time. It's go time.
Wheels up. Okay. Next tier, this begins with David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. During our tight end sleeper show, I had this huge monologue about David Njoku that included like that this one's simple, that he has performed in terrible situations in the past, decent situations. He's been a top scoring tight end. I mean, he finished as the tight end 5 in points per game last year, finished as the tight end 6 the year before that. That was with Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco. He's topped the 10-point mark each year. He averaged 8.8 targets per game last year, 7.7 the year before that. Once again, despite being the worst team in putting up points on the board last year, the Browns are once again doing that this year. And we can get this guy around the tight end 12 mark. I will say the buzz has not, I don't think, been great in that like the future of David Njoku. So it's one of those players, Hayden, who might have a nice start to the seasons if the Browns can like put together the quarterback position. But I wouldn't shock me at all by like October if he's not necessarily getting phased out, but if he's being traded to a different organization.
Where would you rank David Njoku's first 2 months plus Colston Loveland's last 2 months? Because like that could be the Frankenstein strategy here where, okay, we're going to PPR scan with David Njoku early on. The Joe Flacco stuff, I think there's going to be enough pass volume there where he's going to get by. And then Colston Loveland is going to break out late in the season as Harold Fannin starts to threaten David Njoku. David Njoku in the contract year, he's a trade candidate at the deadline if their second or third round tight end starts emerging. Last year, tight end 2 in usage, the third most targets out there. The problem was 5.2 yards per target. They were trying to do the screen stuff with David Njoku, and he probably wasn't like fully healthy, but it was not working. You cannot throw that many targets if they're averaging 5 yards. So I think no longer are we going to do the full PPR scam thing with David Njoku. He was just like not effective last year. So targets are coming away from him. But in the first month of the season, man, like I think he's going to be in my top 10.
If you told me that David Njoku gets 17 games in a Kevin Stefanski offense, and I'm not even changing the quarterback position, just what the Browns are at this moment, I would confidently take him as the tight end 12. I would confidently take him here if I'm the last person in my league to take a player at this position. Again, just the closer we get, I'm not so sure that a team that is going to have a losing record that is looking towards a quarterback already in the 2026 draft won't want to get something from David Njoku at the deadline. Okay, that brings us to our tight end 13. At least for me, this is Dallas Goedert. And Hayden, this is the last name that I want to draft if I'm in a single tight end league. I actually feel a lot more comfortable with David Njoku than the people out there. And it's because I believe he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL, flat out, period. I mean, he led all tight ends last year with 3.48 yards per route run against man coverage. Two things went against him, though. The Eagles were just too good. And like we talked about with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, plus he dealt with a bunch of injuries. I mean, hamstring, knee stuff. But again, when we talk about the formula, he's on a good team that are going to have scoring opportunities. And to me, he's a really good player. So if I totally whiff out on all the targets and they get taken well above me, I do feel like in our fantasy football bubble, I haven't said it vocally, but I am more optimistic about Dallas Goedert than many out there.
Yeah, the splits are just so drastic. When Dallas Goedert did not either have Devontae Smith or AJ Brown last year, he was playable. When both of those guys were healthy, he was like the tight end 20. So that's kind of the game with Dallas Goedert, where it's like, okay, waiver wire comes and AJ Brown's out for a month. Like Dallas Goedert, if he's available, you got to go crazy for him. And he doesn't score that many touchdowns as you would think. I think it's because you have all of the push stuff and the Saquon Barkley that also like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith like catch 40-yard touchdowns. So like where tight ends score touchdowns is like from the 8-yard line. They're never at the damn 8-yard line. They're either tush pushing in or AJ Brown scored a long one. So his touchdown numbers have never like made sense when you think about like a good offense. But I think like if you look at how the Eagles score their points, it does like start to make sense.
The only thing I'll say is that every other tight end from here on out, we're either uncertain about their playing time or we are uncertain about their offense in terms of scoring points, or both together. And as you just noted, when AJ Brown was out, Dallas Goedert was targeted on 32% of his routes. When Devontae Smith was out, he was targeted on 43% of his routes. So again, I rank him as a tight end 12 this year. He's being selected out there as a tight end 16. It's more of an environmental thing plus individual talent versus opportunity and gimmies every single week.
Yep, I think that's fair.
You woke up one day, Hayden, chose violence in the form of ranking Dalton Kincaid as your tight end 12. Again, I felt like I knew you, but this is a new layer of the onion that I found out this summer.
Yeah, I mean, a couple spots ahead of ADP is very violent of me. But versus where he's been actually scoring points, it is actually pretty aggressive. So I do get it. The reality is Khalil Shakir is week to week with an ankle injury. The depth at wide receiver is very lackluster in general. And this is the year where the Bills have to commit to Dalton Kincaid long-term for two reasons. Number one, it's the fifth-year option. They have to decide if they're going to keep him on that fifth-year option after this year. And then also, Dawson Knox has no more guaranteed money after this year as well. So, like, the Bills, who have been this close to breaking through, who have been asking for somebody to step up, I think they want it to be Dalton Kincaid. They drafted him really early. And this is the year where I think if they're going to allow him to either fail an 11 personnel or just kind of skate by, like Sam LaPorta is the same way. He's not a great blocker. They just like deal with it. Brock Bowers, same way, not a good run blocker. They deal with it. If the Bills decide, you know what, this is the year where we're just going to freaking deal with some of the run blocking issues out there, and they're going to shove him out there, I think that would be a win. And also, like you mentioned, the Bills are such a good offense where even if he's a part-time player, is there a chance that he's just still scores 7 touchdowns? I do think so. So yeah, this is just like third-year tight ends. Like this has historically been the kind of the sweet spot to find some breakouts. But the reason why he hasn't been playing the field is because he's been too small. So hopefully he's actually put on he's said he's put on real weight. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah. I know you don't get fantasy points for run blocking, but you get fantasy points for being out there on the field in every situation. And this team drafted Dalton Kincaid to, be 11.5 personnel. But then it came out in his first 2 years when you look at the underlying metrics that like when he was out there in the field in 12 personnel, that was their least efficient stuff,
Yes.
And maybe that's changed. Maybe he's earned their trust. We also see Dawson Knox get banged up, and hopefully Dalton Kincaid can, be the solo tight end on that. I just do feel like still Dawson Knox, despite him not being a real fantasy asset, is a roadblock here, because I understand that Khalil Shakir is coming out or is dealing with a high ankle sprain, but you also have Keon Coleman who can line up there. You also have Josh Palmer who can line up there at the same exact time. So yeah, this needs to be the year. And look, I think because rookie tight ends, young tight ends develop so quickly in the league now and impact it immediately, that oftentimes we forget that Dalton Kincaid could be on the career path like a lot of other productive tight ends have been previously, where they get to closer to the end of their rookie contract, and that's finally when they do blossom. But assuredly, the Bills would have liked him to be more impactful than he has been so far.
Yes, for sure. If the baseline of what you were talking about, where he's not playing enough, he's not going to live up to tight end 12. But is there a pathway to him being a top 8 guy? I do, and I don't really see that many top 8 profiles coming up here.
Yeah, like when he got back from injury last year, where he missed, I think, 3 games in a row, he played 49, 34, 44, 38, 51, and 45% of the snaps, and that included the postseason.
But before that injury, he was a tight end 8 in fantasy usage. So who knows?
Yep. Okay. It almost like exactly coincided with Amari Cooper being traded for on this team as well. Anyways, next is Jake Ferguson. Well, the Cowboys are going to be worse defensively. And then on offense, this team finally does have a real number 2 in George Pickens, but there is plenty of room for a number 3 to emerge. Hayden, why can't Jake Ferguson get 75 targets this season?
I think he can get 75 targets here. I just think that the red zone stuff, so now you have he's very clearly the 3rd or 4th option down there. Also, last year, behind the line of scrimmage, he actually led the tight end position per game into targets. I just don't think that you can afford to do that now that you have like George Pickens to also throw the ball to. So he's fine. The Cowboys are going to throw a ton. He's going to be out there a bunch. There's like some level of competition behind Ferguson. Like, remember, Ferguson took Dalton Schultz's job kind of a little bit unexpectedly. Like, there's a chance that you can have something like that happen here.
With Schoonmaker?
Yeah, you just never know is what I'm trying to say. He's not like some dominant player out there, but he's a functional player in an offense that's going to pass a lot. So I would not be surprised if he's like top 10 in routes throughout September.
Next is Kyle Pitts. He is our tight end 16, and honestly being drafted around that same area in basically all platforms out there. The tight end 16, when you combine home league ADPs, look, since now he is the tight end 16, there is no use in beating a dead horse here, Hayden, in terms of how even in his rookie season, who really wanted to play Kyle Pitts in your fantasy league, even when he reached 1,000 receiving yards. I think people are over the fear of, well, I don't want to be a year late on the Kyle Pitts breakout. I will add, I think the right tackle as a road grader being injured is not a good thing for Kyle Pitts, because this team lives more than any other out of 11 personnel. So you're going to have to get a bigger body at tight end to at least help in that department. And so despite Michael Penix's first 2 days of preseason training camp saying that we're going to get the ball to Kyle, I think some situations are at his disadvantage now too. Yeah,
he's almost like an outside wide receiver. Like, he's not even a slot wide receiver. So behind line of scrimmage targets, he gets none of those. His success rate was among the worst. But that's also because like he gets thrown the ball way downfield. So there's no layups. Like, that's always been the problem with Kyle Pitts and fantasy. Theoretically, he is probably healthier than he was when he had those that kind of underratedly bad knee injury. And Michael Penix is going to be a little bit more willing to throw the ball up and away to Kyle Pitts more than Kirk Cousins. So like, I like him better this year than I did going into this last season. But man, like, he's not going to get the gimmies. So you are reliant on like 30-yard plays from Kyle Pitts. And like, that's going to be very difficult to predict this season.
And we also know his lack of success in terms of red zone situations too. So you're living like
plays down there,
super high variance nature of a tight end here, which is kind of not what I want to do, but maybe maybe.
I always thought he was going to get traded this offseason, and
I did too.
It never materialized whatsoever. Never even seem close.
Nope. Okay. Our tight end 17 is going against a tight end 20. So we are well above market on Tennessee Titan, Chig Okonkwo. Dare I say that if you are, again, late round, Dr. Frankenstein the position, Chig Okonkwo is one of our favorite picks.
If you're in like a 16-person league, PPR, Chig Okonkwo's your guy, man. Last 6 games, 4.8 receptions, nearly 50 yards, played 73% of the snaps. That's not a full-time player, but a lot more than where he was previously. He's been like the guy that flies across the formation at the snap. He's like a tight end 1, but kind of moved around like a tight end 2 is. I just think that this team's going to pass the ball more because they trust their quarterback more. It's more air raidy versus what Will Levis was doing. And I think that's going to mesh well with Chig Okonkwo and Cam Ward together. So, yeah. And the other thing is there's no competition. Like, once again, like that's always been the case with Chig Okonkwo. But like this year, like really is like, if we can expect the offense to look a little bit better and there's still no competition. And if 30-year-old Calvin Ridley ever misses some time here, who is catching passes in this offense?
Right.
It's probably going to be him.
There's a really good chance, in my opinion, that he is the second leader in targets on this team.
Yes.
Behind Calvin Ridley.
Yes.
So
he does get mauled as a blocker, though.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Hunter Henry's next for us. The old man, still scoring touchdowns, still quite efficient on his targets. We know Josh McDaniels' offenses of the past have heavily featured tight ends. I was certain for that very reason that they would have made a dent in terms of this rookie tight end market, free agent tight end market. They didn't do anything of the sort. And so Hunter Henry is going to trot out there and be this team's tight end 1.
He will. It's going to be his age 30/31 season. You're just hoping to have one of those 6 to 9 touchdown seasons out of him, which would require like the Patriots looking much better than they have previously. So we'll see. He's tied to Drake May, certainly. And then there's a little bit more competition now than there was previously. Not a whole lot. This is fine.
Brenton Strange is up, and we are quite different in this ranking. He's going out there as a tight end 17. He is my tight end 17, and he is your tight end 24. This was one of my early like flag plants in February when he was going around the tight end 4, and that has gotten steamed up to, again, this range of tight end 17. He has great athleticism. He's already going to be their lead tight end when it comes to single tight end sets for a team that's going to run a ton of 3 wide receiver, 11 personnel. And there were some occasions last year where some of their pass catchers were injured, and Trevor Lawrence fed Brenton Strange in the short to intermediate game to the tune of like 6 or 7 receptions, all that type of stuff. So I think that this is an ascending player in an ascending offense, and I'm happy to rank him as tight end 17 here.
Yeah. I don't have like strong Brenton Strange takes here. I just think that Brian Thomas and Travis Etienne plus the ball carriers are like, that's where the majority of the targets are going to go. And if he's a really good player and like he deserves as the 3rd in the pecking order, that would be awesome. But I think there's a chance he can be 4th or 5th if it's Diami Brown. They're signing guys at wide receiver still. Parker Washington, every single time I read something about the Jaguars, like Parker Washington's the MVP of camp. I don't know where that's coming from. So yeah, there's more competition now than there was previously.
And I don't think you can copy paste the Cade Otton production last year because the Bucs had even more wide receiver injuries. And in some of those weeks, Liam Cohen literally built the passing game around Cade Otton in like 2 games.
Yes.
So, okay. Isaiah Likely, I think, is next for us. Yes, he is. Isaiah Likely's been dealing like since the first couple of days of camp with what, a high ankle sprain, I believe.
Foot. I think he has like a fracture in his foot, but initially it was
Jones
like a big
something.
Yeah, like it was like a big fracture. Now they're like, no, it's like the smallest fracture you've ever seen. So It's one of those. Do you guys like foot/ankle injuries? Have you heard of the Joe Mixon stuff? So like I am worried, but the latest is their GM said that they expect him to return the early part of the season. I don't think that he went on the PUP list or injured reserve. No, he did not. So he's going to be eligible to play in the first 4 weeks of the season. Doesn't guarantee that, but things are a little bit more optimistic than at least like when the first reports came out.
Earlier this summer, I thought there was a chance that maybe he could take over what Mark Andrews was going to do in this offense, just as like the lead tight end. The injury derails that as any opportunity or any chance. But again, this team runs so many multiple tight end sets, and it's not just these guys. You can include Charlie Kolar and whoever else who can play fullback too. But like they're in 12 personnel plus 22, nearly 50% of snaps, 3 wide receiver sets, 26%. And I mentioned all those red zone numbers for Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely was also second most in red zone targets last year with 13 and scored 5 touchdowns. He's going to still get opportunities, even if he's the quote unquote number 2 tight end on his team.
Yep. Yeah. More better in best ball, though, until Mark Andrews is out of there.
Jonnu Smith is next. Arthur Smith said, I'm not saying this job unless you go trade for my guy, Jonnu. Multiple times they've been together. That's even with Pat Freiermuth and even with Darnell Washington on the roster. This team does not have a second wide receiver. So I don't know what to think of Jonnu Smith, because last year he was so fantasy relevant because the Dolphins didn't have a running game, and their running game became manufactured touches for Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane that I also can't copy paste that to the Steelers offense even close.
No. Luckily, you don't have to, because he was a top 5 tight end last year and led the position in screens. So I think what's going to happen with Jonnu, he will be top 12 in all the per route numbers, the targets per route, yards per route, all of that stuff. And then he's just not going to run enough routes to be an actual top 12 tight end because they have 2 other guys that they need to get on the field. So yeah, there's pros and cons here. Like, there is no wide receiver 2 in the offense. Like, that's good. But there's a 6 offensive lineman who wears a tight end jersey, and then Pat Freiermuth too. And then we also have the slow paced offense that we're still trying to figure out if they're going to be good or not. So I think there's like some PPR scammy upside here, but it can't be like a go into the season top 15 guy.
Okay, Mason Taylor is up next, rookie tight end out of LSU. Jason Sun with the New York Jets. We haven't loved some of their other pass catchers, but this is quite late for Mason Taylor. He's going to be out in the field a ton during his rookie season.
Yeah, 21-year-old early declare out of LSU. He caught 36 passes in each one of his seasons. This last year almost averaged 50 yards per game. All of his receptions are real routes too, which is like kind of intermediate routes. He only had 6 screens, which I think they can throw him the ball because he's pretty fluid after the catch, I thought. There's nobody in the depth chart that we're scared of beyond Garrett Wilson. And if Garrett Wilson ever goes down, it's just going to be him. So obviously it's the same problem. The Jets aren't going to throw that many passes, but he is the number 2 in the pecking order. And I think he's a pretty fluid, pass, more of a pass catching tight end than a blocking tight end. And they can definitely use him as a breakout guy if the Jets are going to be competitive / watchable at all.
This next name is a great indicator that I'm just fantastic at my job, because Theo Johnson is next for us. I rank him as tight end 23. You're at tight end 20. The market has him as tight end 28. The reason why is because there were multiple shows this winter with a comment from you that said, well, you got to show me the good Theo Johnson tape. Yet you're 8 spots above market on Theo Johnson here when we have our final tight end rankings.
Well, he played 84% of the snaps in his 12 games as a rookie. You don't see that. You don't see that. He is 260 pounds. He's going to be out there for almost every 100%. Single snap. And I like all 4 or now all 3 of their quarterbacks. So it's just, the ball is just going to be thrown to him a little bit more. They're going to be in more positions to score touchdowns. In my notes, when we went back and watched him this offseason, he's not a very graceful route runner at all, but he's a good athlete. There's some hurdles. He can kind of square you up and kind of throw you off of him. He's not graceful, but he's out there, man. If you're going to be out there for 85% of the snaps, you are going to have some fantasy moments no matter what. So that's where I stand with him.
Yeah, I think it was in February and March when it was him and Brenton Strange, who were 2 teammates together at Penn State, that both were going in round 16, 17, 18 of best ball drafts. And I was like, these are the late round guys to get. Obviously, Brenton Strange climbed the ladder plenty, but still, Theo Johnson, you were able to get until this past week in that area. I know he had a foot injury that he was dealing with last year, but he was at practice day 1. And as you said, this is the exact type of profile that we love in terms of super athletes that were raw receivers where they can kind of grow into that and grow into their game. And you even saw manufactured screens to him in the preseason. As soon as Jackson Dart stepped in there, that's what Brian Daboll called. So yeah, any gimmies that those guys get in attacking the seams and all that type of stuff, they don't have to be refined football players. This is plenty.
Yeah. It's pretty embarrassing the amount of best ball drafts that I've ended with Darius Slayton, Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson, and Theo Johnson, my last 3 picks being Giants. It's almost every single time. So what can go wrong?
Okay, we'll get to our final tier and we'll go through these quickly. Zach Ertz totally outperformed expectations last year. Still very much a catch and fall player, but that's really all he has to be, especially when you're in an offense that tied for the NFL lead with 4.3 red zone opportunities per game.
I think what they're going to do is all those receptions that Zach Ertz caught, those are going to go to Deebo Samuel now, and then he's not as much of a catch and fall guy. So I'm worried about the Zach Ertz stuff maintaining whatsoever. And Ben Sinnott, who's
and John Bates,
they haven't proven themselves, but they're like at least some names behind Zach Ertz if they ever want to kind of get younger here.
Yeah, John Bates is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, and Ben Sinnott is kind of using 13 personnel as like a hybrid fullback type player. He's one that in the future you would love to see get the Zach Ertz opportunities. Okay, I think Juwan Johnson, and this is maybe the 17th year in a row we say this, is underrated in fantasy circles. We know Foster Moreau is, dealing with an injury and going to miss some time. Juwan Johnson got signed to a hefty contract this summer, and you can get him totally free in your home leagues, and I wouldn't invite you to do that. But in best ball in round 17 and 18, we know this offense and situation stinks, but Juwan Johnson's going to be out there in the field all the time.
Yeah, the problem last year averaged fewer than one red zone target per game. So that's what you're signing up for here. They added Vele, who I think is kind of competition for Juwan Johnson. But yeah, if Kellen Moore's going to throw a lot more underneath passes this year and run more plays, that also is good things for Juwan Johnson. I think we know what the ceiling is here. But could he be a PPR scam guy? It's possible.
Jatavian Sanders is next. He's taking advantage of his opportunity with Tommy Tremble dealing with offseason back surgery. Tremble is back, but Jatavian Sanders has been running with the team's number one tight end with the Carolina Panthers. And he actually slimmed down and got a bit more athletic this summer, which to me was the knock on him coming out, that he was viewed as an athletic specimen and he was more of like a above average athlete.
Yeah, I was just going to say he was not that.
No.
The problem is you slim down and you were already kind of teetering on that, like how much inline can you play? That's going to be his problem. So he's kind of a tweener, and that was why he fell in the draft. He was like at one point supposed to be a second rounder, fell to 101st overall, kind of that tweener type. Better guys to throw the ball to now with Team Actontown.
Yeah, he made some boneheaded situational football decisions last year on some holds, some false starts, legal formations, all that type of stuff. But then he also came down with some ludicrous catches.
Yes.
Some awesome tight window receptions. So,
yep.
Okay. Dalton Schultz is next. There's Dalton Schultz. There's Cade Otton, or not Cade Otton, Cade Stover on the Houston Texans. But Schultz is back with his Texans team, accompanied now with Nick Caley as a play caller.
I guess this is a stand. I have him ranked 23rd overall. He goes 31st in ADP.
Wow.
Here's the reality. Joe Mixon's not coming through that door anytime soon. It's a new coordinator. They're going to pass the ball more. And Brevin Jordan was the primary threat, and he's out for the season now. Dalton Schultz is paid well, and D'Amico Ryan's actually been saying, like, we like what we've seen this offseason. Like, the CJ Stroud number 3 target, perhaps, this year. Like, I'm not ruling that out. So this is, like, last pick. You can do worse.
Harold Fannin is next. Again, we talked about like Dr. Frankensteining the position with one guy early on, like Travis Kelce. You could do the second half of the season, I think, as well with Harold Fannin, who has sat in preseason games because that is being viewed as an impact player on this offense. Mm-hmm. Comes to fantasy, called him an offensive weapon. He's a fun receiving type in an offense that highlights receiving type tight ends.
Yeah, we have prospect profiles on like 50-ish of these guys. Go watch our Harold Fannin one. It was like one of the most intriguing conversations you can possibly have. And he was a bizarre prospect who I loved. And apparently the Browns love him even more than I do. Production off the charts at Bowling Green. Just go watch him play football and try to make sense of it.
Yeah. There is a chance, again, that he totally overtakes for multiple reasons. David Njoku, who I think is still a really quality player, but the Browns aren't building their roster for 2025. Okay, Cade Otton has been dealing with an injury recently. I know Todd Bowles mentioned that he's going to miss some time. He's really their only primary tight end in an offense that also has wide receiver injuries on top of that with Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan.
He was irrelevant until everybody was injured, and then he was very relevant for those couple weeks. So I think that's going to be kind of the moral of the story with all these guys in this conversation. He's a probably better real life player than we give him credit for in fantasy. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, we'll close out with the tight end 30 for us, and that is Mike Gesicki. I was pretty surprised when he returned to the Cincinnati Bengals in free agency, but he is basically T. Higgins insurance or Jamar Chase insurance. He is not a tight end for this team. He's a wide receiver for this team. And by that, I mean, in the weeks that he finished as a top 10 scorer last year at the tight end position, which was only 3, T. Higgins missed game week 2. Gesicki was a tight end 5 in points per game. T. Higgins missed week 9. Mike Gesicki was a tight end 1 in points per game. T. Higgins was banged up in week 17. Gesicki was a tight end 8 in points per game. So again, he has to not have T. Higgins play football in order to be a relevant fantasy option for me.
Yep, he's a waiver wire guy. And then the added wrinkle is they signed Noah Fant during camp. So, and Noah Fant and Mike Gesicki were the same kind of type of player in general. So he might not have the exact same stats anyways.
Okay, that's going to do it. 30 tight ends. Draft them early. Skip out on that middle part. And then go get one of the rookies or Tucker Kraft.
That could have been the whole video. We didn't have to go an hour. We could have made this a short. This could have been a TikTok.
There it is, everyone. Appreciate you. We'll have a video actually on Sunday with some bold predictions that we have not said so far this summer. Some people might mention that we are scared to say them due to our egos, but we will reveal them to all of you on this Sunday. And then plus, we start basically our in-season content on Monday evening with Hayden and Jacob with some players you might want to add to your rosters after your draft ahead of week 1 of the NFL season. So again, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and we'll check out the next one. See you.